In this video, we will provide a tutorial on using the Smart Sensor app with our new line of Smart Sensor ceiling mount sensors and room controllers. We will also show you how to access all of the features packed into this product line. The app is designed for easy use. There are no dip switches or dials on the device themselves, so any changes to the default settings need to be done using the Smart Sensor app. The Leviton Smart Sensor app is available to download from the Google Play Store and the Apple Store. If you plan to use the product in its default settings, the app isn't needed. The sensors and room controllers are designed to work right out of the box in a popular configuration, auto on with a 20-minute timeout. If you want to make changes to these settings or pair with a wireless companion switch or dimmer, then the app is required. The Smart Sensor app is used with several other products. To use the ceiling mount sensors or room controllers, open the app and select the ceiling mount sensor product line. The app will scan for devices in your vicinity, usually within 100 feet. The sensors are broadcasting their Bluetooth signal at all times, so there's no need to place the sensors into pairing mode. For helpful hints and tips, you'll see a question mark in the right-hand corner of every page in the app. This menu will give you some helpful information in case you have questions about what to do, next steps, or terminology. Occasionally, when connecting for the first time, you'll be asked to OK Bluetooth access. The recommendation is to click OK and while using the app. With the ability to connect using the app, it gives the users the opportunity to download new features. These are not necessary for the functionality of the device and are only needed if the new feature is required for the application. Click on More Details on the main settings page and this will show if there are any updates available. If you'd like to download, click on the Updates Available button and then OK to confirm. The updates usually take 2 to 3 minutes depending on signal strength. Now that we've covered some basics, let's go to product programming. First off, you'll need to open the app on your smartphone or tablet. Click on the ceiling mount sensor icon and press Select. You'll begin to see a list of ceiling mount sensors and/or room controllers in the near vicinity. Generally, the sensors closest to you will appear first or be close to the top of the list. Press the green Identify magnifying glass next to the sensor. The sensor will begin to blink with multicolored LEDs and the light that it's connected to will toggle on and off. If this is the sensor that you'd like to connect to, click on the name of the sensor or the caret to the right. Depending on the size of the space and number of sensors, you may see a large number of sensors appear on the scan list. If you'd like to filter the results, you have a couple of options. First, you can filter by name. This is useful only if you already know the sensor name. The filter is typically used after you've connected to and renamed a sensor. Another filter option is to adjust the RSSI strength. Default is -80 dBm, so anything less than 80 will reduce the strength and distance so that only sensors closest to you will appear. Another option is to increase the RSSI strength. This is helpful if you are looking for any sensors not appearing on the original list and may be further away. Once you have connected to a sensor, you'll be brought to the main settings page. Here you can rename the device, which we highly recommend doing. This helps keep track of which sensors have already been programmed. Under More Details, you can review the sensor model number and firmware level and check if there are any firmware updates available. For multi-tech models that include both PIR and ultrasonic, you can disable one of the sensing technologies if desired and increase or decrease the sensor range by adjusting the slider up or down. Below the range slide, you have the option to put the sensors in walk test mode. This is useful when testing the field of view to confirm proper coverage and whether the sensitivity needs to be increased or decreased. The timeout is shortened to 15 seconds in this mode. When finished, you can toggle the walk test to off, or after 15 minutes, it will automatically shut off and resume normal operations. Next on this page, you may see a daylighting calibration note. We'll have more on daylighting coming up, but this is where the status is located if currently in calibration mode. For the operating mode, there are 3 options. Auto on, also known as occupancy. In this mode, the lights or other loads will automatically turn on when occupancy is detected and will stay on until the space becomes vacant and the timeout expires. Next is manual on, also known as vacancy. In this mode, you'll need to add a switch or dimmer so that the lights can be manually turned on upon entry. The lights will then stay on until the space becomes vacant and the timeout expires. The last mode is photocell only. In this mode, the occupancy detection is turned off and the sensors will only make changes to lighting based on natural ambient light. Continuing with programming options on the main settings page. Timeout is the amount of time that occurs when the lights will turn off after a space becomes vacant. 20 minutes is the default, but there are options from 30 seconds to up to 60 minutes. The LED toggle allows you to disable or turn off all LED indicators during normal operation. This is for applications where the LEDs could be distracting, such as hospitals or classroom applications. There is also walkthrough mode, not to be confused with walk test mode. Walkthrough mode should be enabled for spaces that tend to have very short periods of occupancy, such as hallways or corridors where people are passing through. If enabled, the sensors will time out in roughly 2 minutes after vacancy versus the normal timeout setting. If the sensor sees extended occupancy, then the normal timeout will apply. Next, we are going to move into some of the advanced settings. In this section, you can program settings for daylighting, scheduling, dimming, and load options. Define external inputs, including the ability to pair with a wireless companion device, and also create templates for spaces that have common settings. Daylight harvesting will raise or lower the light level based on the amount of natural ambient light entering the room or space to meet the target light level. 0 to 10 volt dimming fixtures are required for daylight harvesting. The last is photocell mode. There are two options, open and closed loop. Closed loop is the default and most common way to measure lighting below the sensors and based on both natural and artificial lighting. Open loop is used for measuring natural lighting directly from a window or skylight. For daylighting, there are 4 modes to choose from. First, it can be disabled. The sensor will ignore any changes in ambient light. The next option is ambient light hold-off, which is generally used for switching-only applications. If enabled and the target level is met, the sensors will hold the lights off regardless of occupancy detection. For daylighting calibration, you can select the device to do it automatically or do it manually. For automatic calibration, the sensor will use Leviton's AutoCal process, which will hold the lights on for 24 hours to calculate the target value, which should be based on artificial lighting only. If manual calibration is selected, you can select the target value yourself. The page will display the current light lux value that the sensor is seeing. Once the target is set, the daylighting will kick in instantly, no need to wait 24 hours. For daylight harvesting applications, you can select a max dim to level. The lighting will never dim below this value even if the space is flooded with an extraordinary amount of natural ambient light. Next is the daylight sensor level. Once a target level has been set, you have another option to increase or decrease the amount of ambient light required to begin daylighting. For the daylighting response time, this is the amount of time the sensor will respond to changes in lighting, making the transition nearly invisible to the human eye. If there is a switch or dimmer connected to the sensor and the energy codes allow for it, you can enable the manual override mode. In this mode, a person in the room or space can manually increase the lighting above the target levels. If that mode is enabled, there's also a timeout associated with options of 5 minutes to 1 hour. After that timeout expires, the lighting level returns to the current daylighting level. For dual relay models, there is an option for a Zone 2 offset. This is ideal for applications that include both primary and secondary lighting zones. For example, if set to 100%, the lighting in Zone 2 will be 50% offset to Zone 1. So if the lights in Zone 1 go completely off due to incoming ambient light, the lighting in Zone 2 will go to 50%. Or, if lights in Zone 1 are dimmed to 25%, Zone 2 will be 75%. If connected to a 0 to 10 volt dimming fixture, you can enable partial on, partial off levels and set minimum and maximum trim levels under the dimming and load section. First, let's look at the dimming updates. You can set partial on levels where you want the lights to initially turn on using a slider bar to set this level. 50% is common in many applications requiring multi-level lighting controls to meet energy code requirements. Partial off can also be set on this page if required. Once a space is vacant and the timeout expires, lighting will dim to this level rather than going all the way off. There's a drop-down bar to set the partial off timeout where the lights will turn full off after this period. The timeout options range from 30 seconds to always on. This can be used in an application requiring lights to be on at some level for safety reasons, such as a stairwell or dimly lit long hallways or corridors. To set the trim levels, go to the Load section. The dimming max level is used to reduce the maximum output of the fixture. This level becomes the new max bright output. The min setting is used to increase the lowest level before the fixture turns fully off. External inputs is the next section we'll cover in advanced settings. These are the low voltage inputs where you may have connections to the sensor using the Phoenix connectors. These low voltage connections are used for the following inputs. Low voltage switch. Select this option when connecting to a PLVSW keypad wall station. These are used to provide manual or on-off control when connected to a switching-only sensor, or dimming versions when connected to a 0 to 10 volt dimming room controller. Select demand response for California Title 24 applications when connected to a BMS, ADR, or any contact closure where lighting output needs to be reduced when a signal is received. Levels can be programmed to reduce anywhere from 15 to 50% when a signal is received. Lastly, we have emergency. This is the opposite action to demand response. When connected to BMS emergency system, a signal is received through the dry contact and lighting will go full on regardless of dim level or on or off state. Any of the outputs that are defined as a switch, you can also define what they control. Some of the options will depend on whether they are connected to a single or dual relay unit. Select primary zone to only control the lighting load. For single relay models, this is the load connected to the device. For dual relay models, this is for one of the relays. Secondary zone. This option is only for dual relay models. This is for manual control of lighting connected to the second relay. This is also for dual relay devices only. It will control both relays and zones like a three-way switch or dimmer. The last option is network, and this is used when you have multiple CMS devices linked together wirelessly. In the network option, the switch or dimmer will control all the zones or relays of sensors or room controllers that are wirelessly paired together. When connected to a sensor or room controller, you can check the current status by clicking on the status caret. From there, you can check the following: occupancy status, current lux level and whether it's in daylighting mode, demand response is active, current light levels, and you can see if emergency is currently active. An exclusive feature carried over from ProVolt is the ability to save settings as a template and reuse them in similar spaces. For example, if you're doing multiple rooms in a large building that requires the same setting, you can save a room as a template and simply upload that template for the next room rather than going through each setting and making changes. After doing the first room, you can create a new template by clicking on the Create Template button and giving it a name. For the next room, go back to the same page and you'll see the template you created. Click on the template and press Save and the settings will be uploaded. Please note, the templates are saved on a phone or tablet and not via the app, so if you're using multiple devices, the template will only be saved on whichever device was used. In this next section, we'll show you how you can use the app to pair with one of the optional wireless companion devices. For applications requiring manual control, you can hardwire PLVSW keypads or use one of the SPK00 wireless companion devices. These are true wireless devices that are battery powered and do not require any wiring. They are mounted in an existing wall box or directly to a flat wall surface. For the best results, they should be mounted within 50 feet of a smart ceiling mount sensor or room controller. Up to 4 of these SPK00s can be paired with a single sensor or room controller. Pairing is done through the Smart Sensor app. First, open the Smart Sensor app and select Ceiling Mount Sensor. Next, select the appropriate sensor or room controller you would like to pair the companion device to. Scroll down to the heading called Wireless Companion and press the caret. If you are planning to pair multiple companions, only do one at a time. Next, click on the plus symbol to add companions. You'll receive a prompt to place the companion into pairing mode. To do this, press the top pedal of the rocker or button 5 times until the status LED blinks green. Press Continue. The companion that was placed into pairing mode should now show up on a list of discoverable companions. Note, it may take up to 30 seconds for the device to show up on the list. Next, click the plus symbol next to the name of the companion and confirm you'd like to pair. The pairing will begin and takes about 10 to 15 seconds to complete. When the pairing is complete, you'll be asked if you'd like to pair with another companion or if complete. If you'd like to pair with another, click Yes and repeat the process we just covered. When finished, press Yes. After the pairing is complete, a list of paired companions will show up on the wireless companion page. Please note, it may take the page up to 30 seconds to refresh and show the list of paired companions. Like the hardwired devices, you can select what you'd like the companion to control. For single relay devices, you can select the primary zone or network if there are multiple sensors paired together. For dual relay devices, you can select primary, secondary, both zones, and network. When finished, click the back arrow to return to the main settings page. The companion device will become active upon completing the pairing process and exiting the app. If you need to connect to the sensor or room controller again, it will show that it's paired with a wireless companion device. Next, we'll show you how multiple sensors and/or room controllers can be grouped together to expand the occupancy sensing coverage. Up to 5 sensors and room controllers can be grouped together. The group can be mixed, which means a 0 to 10 volt dimming room controller can be grouped with a switching only sensor. Certain functions will be limited to the sensor since they are on-off only, where the room controllers have 0 to 10 volt dimming capabilities. Total distance is limited by Bluetooth signal range. To increase the range, it's recommended that you start with the sensor or room controller in the middle of the space to maximize the Bluetooth range in any direction. When grouped together, the sensors and/or room controllers will share occupancy coverage, operating mode, and timeouts. If connected to switches or dimmers, all manual control will remain independent unless it's set up to operate as three-way or across the entire network. These are all selectable options in the app. Daylighting zones may also remain independent. To create a group, start from the initial scan page. This is where you should identify and start with the sensor or room controller that will be in the middle of the group. Once you have confirmed the correct device, click the check mark to start forming the group. At this point, you also have the option to rename the sensor. If you have no changes, click the Add button and the group is now created. This is the initial device where the group was started from. To add additional sensors or room controllers, you will repeat the same process. The Identify button can be used to confirm you are adding the correct device. Up to 5 sensors or room controllers can be grouped. Again, it's okay to have mixed groups of sensors or room controllers. Once a group has been formed, the devices will appear with a light group background on the scan page to show which devices are grouped together. Once a group has been formed, you can access a group that's already been created and add additional devices. To add to the group, go to the main scan page and select the gear icon in the upper left corner of the sensors showing in the group. If there are multiple groups and you aren't sure, you can use the Identify icon. All the devices in the group will identify themselves by flashing LEDs and toggling the light loads on and off. After you've pressed the gear icon of the appropriate group, select the Edit icon, which looks like a pencil. A new scan list will show available devices. Just like previously when selecting items to the group, you can use the Identify icon to confirm you're adding to the right device. The next steps are the same as when you first started the group. Use the check icon to confirm the sensor. You have the option to rename if you'd like and then add to the group. Repeat if more devices are to be added. If you need to remove a group or remove items from a group, you can do this from the main scan page. Find the group, use the Identify icon if needed to confirm, and then select the trash icon to break up the group. You'll be asked to confirm. If good, select Delete. Next, we'll look at scheduling. Here you can create behaviors and have them run at set times during the day and week. The room controller models are 0 to 10 volt dimming models with built-in time clocks. Schedules can be run on individual room controllers or in a group that contains at least one room controller. With scheduling, room controllers and sensors behave differently based on the time of day and/or the day of week to maximize energy savings or change lighting behaviors based on how the space is being used. With scheduling, you can change the light level, operating mode, timeout, partial on and off levels, and daylight mode based on the time or day of the week. If the group is mixed, you must be connected to a room controller in the group to create the schedule when you initially set up the schedule through the app. Next, we'll walk through how to create a schedule for a group of room controllers. The process for creating a schedule for an individual room controller is the same, except where you start the process from. For a group, it's on the main scan page. Click on the gear icon and the clock icon. For individual, click on the caret next to the behaviors and schedules. For group schedules, press the gear icon and the clock icon. Next, select the Behaviors tab and click on Create Behavior. A behavior is what happens when a schedule is executed. To create a group schedule, the first thing you'll need to do is set the time. The easiest way to do this is to import it directly from your phone or smart device. You may also choose to do this manually. In addition to the time, you'll also want to sync the location settings. These will be geolocated with latitude and longitude settings, which are important if one of your schedules starts at sunrise or sunset, as that timing migrates slightly each day. First, you'll need to create a name for the behavior. This can be something like office hours, weekend, late shift, etc. Next are the behavior attributes. The first attribute is the light level, where you'll have several options. On. Select On for lights to turn on full when the behavior starts. If a partial on level is also selected, it will go to that level after the next event vacancy, then occupancy. Next is Off. Just like turning the lights on, they can be off when the behavior starts. Next is the operating mode, which is just like the standard operating mode selected on the main settings page. However, this mode is specifically for the behavior. The operating mode options are Auto On. In this mode, the lights will turn automatically on with occupancy. The default is 100%, but the level can be adjusted with the partial on level. The lights will turn off upon vacancy and once the timeout expires. Manual On. To select Manual On, the room controller must be connected to a low voltage keypad or companion switch or dimmer, which is required to be pressed to turn the lights on. The lights will turn off upon vacancy and once the timeout expires. Next is Photo Cell Only. In this mode, the occupancy sensor is disabled and the lighting will only change based on changes to ambient light levels. The last operating mode is Hold Level. With Hold Level, the lighting will be held at a specific brightness or level for the duration of the schedule running the behavior. Occupancy events and photocell readings are ignored in the Hold Level mode. For lighting based on occupancy, you can also select partial on and partial off levels, including a timeout for the partial off level to go fully off. When vacant, if you want the lighting to go to the partial off level and stay there, select that as an option in the app. Next is level. Like partial on, when the behavior starts, the lights will automatically go to this level. This can be anywhere from 1 to 99%. Last is none. This means there is no specific lighting level that the lighting will go to when the behavior starts. This is because it will only be based on other factors such as the operating mode, which can be dictated by occupancy or daylighting levels. For any of the behaviors other than when they are set to a particular level, or if the photocell is disabled, you can select Daylight Enabled to include daylighting with the behavior. For example, if the behavior calls for lights to turn on but there's sufficient ambient light available, it will dim down to the target level or keep the lights full off if the lighting is sufficient. Once you have all the settings in place for the behavior, click on the Create Behavior button. You'll repeat this process for each new behavior you create. Now that the behavior is created, click on the Schedules tab to tell it when you would like the behavior to start. Once on the Schedules tab, click on Create Schedule. Select the start time to tell it when you'd like the behavior to start. This can either be a specific time or it can be based on sunrise or sunset times. You can even select to have it start 10 minutes after sunrise or 10 minutes before sunset as an example. Next, you can select the transition time. This sets how long the behavior selected will gradually transition from the previous state. Transition times range from 1 second all the way up to 3 hours. You can also select which days you would like to schedule the run. It can be anywhere from one day of the week to every day of the week. Below the days scheduled is a drop-down to select which behavior will run. These are the behaviors that you created under the Behaviors tab. Lastly, click the Create Schedule button and the schedule is ready to go. Repeat this same process for each schedule that you'll need to run. For example, you may have one that will run weekdays from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., and then weekdays from 5 p.m. to 8 a.m., and then potentially another schedule that will run Friday from 5 p.m. to Monday at 8 a.m. Thank you for watching this tutorial. This guide is intended to make your next job with smart sensors go as smoothly as possible. For more information, visit leviton.com/smartsensors.